My mother was standing at the head of my grandmother's dining table, a wine glass in one hand and her phone in the other, and her thumb was hovering over a single button. 48 relatives sat around that table, from as far as Maine and as close as the next town over, and every one of their phones was about to buzz at the same instant. She thought she was about to watch me break. She had planned this the way some people plan a wedding. What she did not know was that I had spent 3 years quietly building the one thing that would end her, and she had just handed me the perfect moment to use it. But let me freeze it right there, her thumb in the air, the room warm with candlelight, and the smell of the roast I had been cooking since dawn. Because if you have ever been the child a family decided to write off, the one whose name gets said with a little sigh attached, I need you to hear how this ends. Stay with me. This one is worth it. My name is Elodie Radcliffe. I am 28 years old, and I work as a forensic accountant at a mid-sized auditing firm in Philadelphia. My whole job is finding the lie hidden inside a column of numbers. People think accounting is boring. I think it is the most honest thing in the world. Numbers do not play favorites. Numbers do not remember your birthday 3 weeks late with no exclamation point. Numbers do not look at you across a porch and tell you to stand in the back so you do not block everyone. My grandmother used to say it to me when I was small, sitting on a stool in her kitchen while she balanced her checkbook by hand. Numbers do not lie, sweetheart. People do. It took me 28 years to understand she was not talking about the checkbook. I live in a small apartment in Fishtown, 550 square feet, a radiator that clanks all winter, a window that looks out on a brick wall. It is not much, but I have paid every dollar of that rent myself since I was 22, and there is a kind of peace in the space that nobody gave you and nobody can take away. My sister Portia, 3 years older than me, just bought a 4-bedroom colonial in Bryn Mawr. Our parents gave her the down payment, $95,000, wrapped up in a card that said, "We are so proud of you." I found out about the house from an online photo, the two of them standing on the lawn, holding an oversized set of keys. I pressed the little heart on the picture because that is what you do, and then I sat in my clanking apartment and felt nothing, which is its own kind of sad. My sister is a lawyer. She made junior partner at her firm last spring, and the family flew in for a catered party with champagne and a banner. When I graduated from Drexel, magna cum laude, with a finance degree and a mountain of debt, I got a text from my mother that said, "Congratulations," 3 weeks after the ceremony, no exclamation point. I am not telling you this so you feel sorry for me. I am telling you because I stopped expecting anything else a very long time ago. When you grow up as the disappointment, you learn to measure your worth in things you can actually hold. Your work, your savings, the quiet of a room that is only yours. My boyfriend Julian used to ask me why I still went to the family gatherings, why I still answered when my mother called, why I let her words slide off me like rain off a window. I never had a good answer. Maybe some small, stubborn part of me kept hoping that if I stayed quiet enough, useful enough, easy enough, she would finally look at me the way she looked at Portia. It never happened, and it took me until last year to understand that it was never going to, because the reason had nothing to do with anything I could fix. Growing up, Portia was the future. I was the problem. Her report cards were framed. Mine came with a lecture about the one grade that was not perfect. When she won something, there was a dinner. When I won something, there was silence. Or there was a comment about how I could have done better. My father, Gregory, tried in his quiet way. He would put a hand on my shoulder after one of my mother's sharper remarks and say, "Your mother loves you. She just has a harder time showing it with you." I believed him for years. I wanted to believe him. He was the one who taught me to ride a bike, who sat with me through algebra, who walked me into my dorm carrying 2 boxes at once so I would not have to make a second trip. Remember him. He matters more than anyone in this story. When it came time for college, Portia and I were each supposed to have an education fund. My grandparents, my mother's parents, had set them up when we were babies, the same amount in each account, money put aside so that neither of us would start adult life underwater. Portia graduated with no debt at all. I graduated owing $71,000 in student loans, and I am still paying them. When I asked my mother about it, she told me my fund had run dry because of extra expenses when I was in high school. Tutoring, she said, summer programs, things you needed. I did not question it. She was my mother. Why would she lie about money that was meant for her own child? But here is the thing about me. I trace money for a living, and 3 years ago, for reasons I could not fully explain even to myself, I started tracing my own. There is a folder buried 3 levels deep on my laptop. I named it insurance. Just a word. Just a precaution I told myself I would probably never need. Inside were 3 files, a screenshot, a document, a spreadsheet. I had been adding to it quietly for 3 years, ever since I saw something I was never supposed to see, and every time I opened that folder I told myself the same thing, that I was keeping it just in case, that no one in a normal family would ever actually use a thing like this. Hold that folder in your mind. We are coming back to it. 2 weeks before Mother's Day, my mother announced her plan in the family group chat. Not a quiet dinner, a reunion. Everyone. Every aunt and uncle, every cousin, every spouse and every child, 48 people in all, gathering at my grandmother Winifred's farmhouse out in Bucks County. It has been too long since we were all together, she wrote. Let us make this Mother's Day one to remember. I read that message 4 times. Something about the size of it, the insistence that everyone come, the way she kept following up with people who had not replied, sat wrong in my stomach. My mother did not do things by accident. She staged them. Julian was cooking when I told him. He set down the wooden spoon and looked at me. You do not have to go, he said. She is my mother, I said. That does not mean you owe her an audience, he said. I did not have an answer for that either. The next day my sister called, sweet as syrup. Hey, so you are coming early to help set up, right? Like always? Like always meant I would arrive at dawn to cook and clean and arrange flowers, while she floated in at noon with a bottle of expensive wine and a dress that cost more than my rent. Sure, I said, like always. That night, I opened the insurance folder for the first time in months. 3 files. I looked at each one for a long time. Then I closed the laptop and lay in the dark, unable to sleep, feeling in my bones that my mother was building something, and that I was the punchline she had not delivered yet. Mother's Day morning, I arrived at the farmhouse at 7. The sun was barely up and dew still clung to the grass. The old white colonial looked exactly the way it always had. The wraparound porch, the faded blue shutters, the kind of house that holds 3 generations of memories, not all of them kind. I spent the next 4 hours cooking and cleaning and arranging flowers and setting the long table with the good china. 48 plates, 48 cloth napkins, 48 chances, though I did not know it yet, for the day to detonate. Portia arrived at 11:30 in a cream silk dress, carrying a bouquet of peonies that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. She kissed our mother on both cheeks and told her the decorations looked perfect. The decorations I had spent all morning putting up. You outdid yourself, she said. My mother smiled and said, I had a little help. She did not look at me when she said it. By noon, the house was full of relatives I saw once a year, and cousins I could barely name, their children thundering down the hall, the whole place loud with laughter, and the smell of the roast I had been tending since dawn. My mother moved through it all like a queen at her own coronation, accepting hugs, accepting compliments, accepting the light. I stayed near the kitchen, where I have always been most comfortable, because the kitchen never asked me to perform. When it was time for the family photograph, my mother arranged everyone on the porch steps and placed Portia right beside her. When I stepped forward, she glanced at me and said, Elodie, honey, stand in the back. You are taller. You will block everyone. So I stood in the back, and that was when my grandmother appeared beside me and took my elbow. Her grip was iron for a woman of 78. Whatever happens today, she said, very low, so only I could hear, you hold your ground. You understand me? I did not understand, not yet, but I nodded, because when Winifred Ellery told you to do something, you did it. The toasts began after lunch. My Uncle Bernard went first, raising his glass to the heart of this family. My Aunt Dorothy followed, teary, talking about sisterhood. One cousin after another stood to praise the mothers in the room, and my mother in particular, the woman who sacrificed everything. I stayed quiet. I had learned long ago that my voice was not wanted in moments like this. And then my mother stood. She smoothed her lavender dress. She lifted her wine glass. The room went silent with a reverence she had spent decades cultivating. Thank you all for being here, she began. In that warm, practiced voice she saved for an audience. Being a mother is the most rewarding job in the world, and also the hardest. Murmurs of agreement rolled around the table. I have been blessed with 2 daughters, she said. 2 very different daughters. She paused, letting it settle. One who has made me proud every single day, and one who has tested me every step of the way. Eyes began to drift toward me. I felt them land like heat on the side of my face. I have thought long and hard, she went on, about how to show all of you what motherhood truly costs. The sacrifices, the expense. So, I have prepared something special. A gift, you might call it. For all of you, and for one daughter in particular. Her thumb moved across her screen, and around that beautiful table, 48 phones began to buzz. Ding after ding after ding, a wave of it. I want everyone to see exactly what it cost, she said, her eyes finding mine and holding them to raise a disappointment. The room went still, and in that stillness I finally understood what my grandmother had been trying to warn me about. This was not a reunion. This was an execution, and I was meant to be the one on the block. 48 phones lit up at once. I watched hands reach for them, watched faces bend toward the glow, watched expressions slide from curiosity to discomfort to something close to horror. The subject line read, "The cost of raising a disappointment," and underneath it was a spreadsheet. 28 years of my life reduced to line items. Hospital birth, $14,200. Diapers, the first 2 years, $3,100. Childhood clothing, $16,800. Braces, $9,000. Summer camps, $5,200. First car, $13,000. College room and board, $51,000. Cell phone bills, $9,200. On and on it scrolled all the way to a bolded total at the bottom, $362,000. My mother read selections aloud, her voice carrying across the silent room. Orthodontia, $9,000. Does she ever once say thank you? Birthday parties, over 18 years. Did she ever appreciate a single one of them? Somebody laughed, a nervous, awful little laugh. Somebody else shifted in their chair. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway with 48 pairs of eyes on me, some pitying, some entertained, most of them just looking away. "This is what a thankless child costs," my mother said. "This is what disappointment looks like, in dollars and cents." And then she did the thing I will never forget. She had printed it out and put it in a frame, a real gilded frame that matched my grandmother's decor. And she walked to the mantel and hung it above the fireplace, right next to the family portrait. "A reminder," she said, turning to face me. "For all of us." The room waited for me to cry, to apologize, to shrink down into myself and make everyone uncomfortable so that she could play the long-suffering mother one more time. I had played that role for 28 years, every holiday, every phone call, every gathering. I had swallowed the humiliation and smiled through it and told myself that peace was worth the price. My hands should have been shaking. They were not. Because buried in my phone was a folder named Insurance, and my mother had just given me the perfect reason to open it. I let the silence stretch. I let her stand there and enjoy what she thought was her victory. I let the whole room hold its breath, waiting for the familiar script. Elodie apologizes. Elodie cries. Elodie disappears. Not today. My mind moved through it all in the space of a few seconds. Every Christmas where my gifts were an afterthought. Every report card that earned a lecture. Every time I had apologized simply for existing in a way that inconvenienced her. Every night I had spent staring at a credit report I could not make sense of. Every call with that tax agent about returns I had never filed. Every apartment application rejected because of a credit score I had never earned. And I thought about the folder. 3 files, 3 years, 3 chances to prove that the word disappointment had never been the truth. It had been a cover story. I looked around the table. Portia was whispering something to her husband, Grant, a little smirk on her lips. My father was staring at his plate, and my grandmother sat perfectly still, her eyes on me, and she gave me the smallest nod. My hand went to my phone. "Mom," I said. My voice cut through the silence, clean and level, my client presentation voice. "Since we are sharing numbers today, I have a few of my own." The smirk on her face flickered. "What are you doing?" she asked. I smiled, the first real smile I had worn all day, balancing the books. I walked to the center of the room. Every step echoed on the old hardwood. The conversations had died completely. Even the children in the hallway had gone quiet, the way animals go quiet before a storm. "Keep your phones handy," I said, "because I am about to send you something, too." "Elodie," my mother said, and there was a warning edge in it now. "This is not the time." "Actually," I said, stopping right beside her, close enough to see the careful mascara and the first flicker of fear underneath it. "It is the perfect time. You calculated what I cost you, Mom. It only seems fair that I calculate what you cost me." I opened my email, selected all 48 contacts, and before she could say another word, I pressed send. The chorus of notifications filled the room again. Ding, 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 one after another, spreading through the crowd like dominoes going down. "Before I show you what is in that message," I said, "I want to be clear about one thing. Everything I am about to show you, I am showing as a copy. The originals, the certified bank records, the sworn documents, are all with my attorney and backed up in 3 places. I learned a long time ago that in this family, things have a way of disappearing. Not this time." My mother's face had gone pale. "What did you just send?" she whispered. "The truth," I said. You brought numbers, Mom. I brought documents. Across the room, my Uncle Silas, a retired accountant, was already reading, his brow furrowed. My Uncle Bernard looked up at my mother with an expression I had never seen him aim at her before. Deirdre, he said slowly, what is this? Let me take them the way I took the room, one file at a time. The first attachment, I said. Mom, in your little bill, you charged me for college, room and board, living expenses. $51,000. Here is the problem. I paid for college myself, $71,000 in loans, and I am still paying them. Murmurs rippled down the table. That is because my education fund ran out, right? I said. That is what you told me. Extra expenses in high school. Except I trace money for a living. My grandparents set up an education trust for each of us when we were children. The same amount in both, $94,000 each. I let that number sit. Portia used hers and graduated with no debt. Mine was withdrawn in full, in a single transaction in August, 1 month before I started college, and the money went into a personal account belonging to Deirdre Radcliffe. My Aunt Dorothy's hand went to her mouth. 1 week after that withdrawal, I said, a new car was bought, paid for in cash. That money was for family expenses, my mother said, her voice climbing defensive. You do not understand. I understand bank records, I said, and I kept my voice flat and calm. I understand wire transfers. I understand that you took the money meant for my education and let me drown in debt while you drove a luxury car off a lot. My father stood up slowly. His face had drained of color. Deirdre, he said quietly, is this true? My mother opened her mouth. I was not finished. That is only the beginning, I said. I opened the second attachment, the spreadsheet. For the past 2 years, I have been getting letters from the tax authorities. Audit notices, discrepancies. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I hired an accountant to dig, and I turned the phone so the people nearest me could see the screen, columns of dates and filings. From 2019 to 2024, my mother claimed me as a dependent on her federal taxes. 6 years in a row. My cousin Trevor frowned. Parents claim their kids all the time, he said. I was 22 in 2019, I said, living in my own apartment, paying my own rent, my own insurance, my own everything. I have not been anyone's dependent since I was 21. The room understood. I watched it move across their faces. Each year she claimed between $4,000 and $6,000 in benefits she was not entitled to, using my social security number. All told, roughly $34,000. That is not a loophole. That is tax fraud, and it is a federal crime. My Uncle Silas, the retired accountant, spoke up, and his voice was grim. She is right, he said. That is exactly what that is. I had to pay a professional $3,900 out of my own pocket, I said, just to clean up the mess. My father's hands were gripping the edge of the table. Deirdre, he said. You told me she agreed to the arrangement. Gregory, stay out of this, my mother snapped. But it was far too late for that. There is one more file, I said quietly, and I asked her a question instead of opening it. Mom, do you remember when I applied for my first apartment after college, the one in Cambridge? She said nothing. I got rejected, I said. The landlord told me my credit score was 511. I was 22 years old with a score that said I was a financial disaster, and I had never once missed a payment in my life. I had never even had a credit card. Understanding was dawning on a few faces now. So I pulled my full credit report, I said. And do you know what I found? I opened the third attachment. 3 credit cards, opened in my name, using my social security number, in 2015, 2016, and 2017. All maxed out. $52,000 of debt on my record for purchases I never made. My Aunt Dorothy gasped. That is identity theft, my Uncle Silas said flatly. That is another federal crime. It took me 4 years to clear my name, I said. 2 lawyers, hundreds of hours on the phone, but I kept everything, every statement, every piece of paper. And then I saw movement at the edge of the room. Portia was standing up, reaching for her purse. Sit down, Portia, I said. She froze. You are not going anywhere. I met her eyes. Because one of those cards, the statements were shipped to your address. The color drained out of my sister's face. I did not know, she started. Do not, I said, and my voice was calm and cold. I have the shipping receipts, your address, your signature on the delivery confirmations. The whole room turned to look at her, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. You received packages in my name for 3 years, I said. Designer bags, electronics, jewelry. I pulled up one particular receipt, including an engagement ring. $9,600, charged to a card with my name on it. Grant, her husband, was staring at her hand, at the diamond glittering under my grandmother's dining room lights. You wore my stolen name to your own wedding, I said. Did you know, Portia? Or did you just decide not to look too closely? Portia's voice cracked. Mom said it was an emergency. She said you would never find out. An emergency that lasted 4 years and paid for a wedding ring, I said. My Aunt Dorothy rose from her seat, ashen. Portia, how could you? I did not know it was illegal, my sister said, and the tears came, real ones maybe, or maybe just the performance she had learned from the master. She told me you would never check. She told me. She told you to help her steal from me. I finished. And you did. The murmurs had become open talk now, relatives turning to one another, some in shock, some in anger, some already pushing back their chairs and reaching for their coats. But I still had one more file, the screenshot, the one I had been carrying for 3 years. The one that explained everything. My mother saw the rooms slipping away from her, and so she did what she had always done. She changed tactics. Her shoulders began to shake. Her eyes filled. She pressed a hand to her chest as if she could not breathe. I cannot believe this, she said, her voice breaking on cue. I gave everything to this child. Everything, and this is how she repays me. A few relatives hesitated, because we are all trained from birth to comfort a crying mother. I made mistakes, yes, she said, but I did it for this family. Everything I did was for this family. She reached for my father's arm. Gregory, tell them. Tell them I only ever wanted what was best. My father stood rigid, his jaw working, and he did not move toward her. She turned to my grandmother. Mama, please, say something. You know me. You know I am not a monster. My grandmother remained in her chair, her face like carved stone. I am listening, Deirdre, she said quietly. I am listening to every word. My mother's desperation cracked through the mask. Fine, she said, and her voice hardened into something dangerous. You want to play this game, Elodie? You want to air the family's dirty laundry in front of everyone? She stepped toward me, too close. Then let us talk about why, she hissed. Let us talk about why I have treated you differently your whole life. There are things you do not know, things I protected you from. There are things about you, she said, low and vicious, that would change how every person in this room sees you. She thought she still had a card to play. She thought her secret was bigger than mine. She had no idea they were the same secret. You are right, Mom, I said. There is something I did not know. Until 3 years ago. Her eyes widened. Just a fraction. What are you talking about? She said. 3 years ago, I said. I was at Portia's apartment. She left her phone on the counter and went into the other room to take a call. A message came through. I did not go looking for it. But my name was in the preview, and what I saw, I could not unsee. The color was pouring out of my mother's face now. So I took a screenshot, I said. Do not, she whispered. And I have kept it for 3 years, I said. 3 years of you humiliating me at every holiday, every birthday, every phone call, and I never said a word. Please, she said, and the word came out shattered. Please, Elodie. Whatever you think that is. I never planned to use it, I said. I told myself it was not mine to tell, that maybe you had a reason for being the way you were. But you planned all of this, Mom. You built this whole day to humiliate me in front of the people I grew up with. So now I am going to tell the truth. If you ever loved me, my mother started. I loved you, I said, and I felt something crack open in my chest. I spent my entire life trying to earn your love. It turns out I never had a chance. I opened the email, selected all 48 contacts, attached the screenshot, and let my thumb rest over the button. This is why, I said quietly. This is why you have hated me since the day I was born. And I pressed send. The notifications erupted. 48 phones. 48 tones, one after another, a cascade that filled the silent room like something breaking apart. My mother lunged toward me. Delete it, she said. Make them delete it. My Uncle Bernard caught her arm. Deirdre, stop. But everyone was already reading. I watched it move across their faces. Confusion first, then the slow, terrible comprehension, then shock. My Aunt Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. My Uncle Silas sat down heavily. My cousin Trevor dropped his phone entirely. The screenshot was a text message from Deirdre Radcliffe to Portia Radcliffe, dated 3 years earlier. It read, "This one is not Gregory's biological child. Do not ever tell anyone. If he finds out, he will divorce me, and I will lose everything." The room went absolutely, perfectly still. And then my father spoke. "Deirdre," he said, and his voice was barely a whisper. "What is this?" My mother was shaking, all the color gone from her. "It is not. I can explain. That is not what it is. It true?" he said. The question hung in the air over 32 years of marriage. My mother could not answer. And it was Portia, of all people, who confirmed it. "It is real," she said, hollow. "She sent it to me 3 years ago. She made me swear never to say anything." My father made a sound I had never heard a person make. A low, wounded sound, and he turned and walked toward the door. "Gregory," my mother said, reaching for him. He did not look back. The front door opened and closed. I heard his car start. And standing in the wreckage of her own making, my mother finally turned and looked at me, not with anger, but with something far worse: fear. What followed was a silence unlike anything I have ever felt. 47 people absorbing the same information in the same moment. 28 years of a family's history rewritten by 2 sentences. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who helped me with algebra, who carried 2 boxes at once so I would not make a second trip, was not my biological father. And my mother had known the whole time. Suddenly, everything made a horrible kind of sense. The coldness, the comparisons, the way she looked at me, sometimes like I was a bruise she kept pressing. I was not a disappointment, I was evidence. "You spent 28 years punishing me," I said quietly, "not because I was not good enough, but because every time you looked at me, you saw your own mistake." My mother's mouth opened and closed. "I was 26, she finally said. "Your father and I were barely speaking that whole year. It was one mistake, one." "I do not care what happened 28 years ago," I said. "I care about every single day after it, every insult, every comparison. Every time you made me feel like I was worth nothing." My grandmother rose from her chair. She crossed the room slowly toward her daughter, and for a moment I thought she was going to comfort her. Instead, she stopped 3 feet away and looked at her with an expression I had never once seen on her face. Disgust. "I suspected," Winifred said quietly. "For years I suspected something was wrong. The way you treated that girl, the favoritism so open it made me sick." She shook her head. "But I never imagined this." "Mama, please," my mother said. 28 years, my grandmother said. "You lied to everyone, to Gregory, to this whole family." She paused. To me, my mother began to cry, and this time the tears were real. I could tell the difference. But nobody moved to comfort her. The room fractured. People stood all at once, voices overlapping, chairs scraping. "I cannot believe this. 28 years. That poor man." My Aunt Dorothy grabbed her purse and left without a word. My Uncle Silas followed, shaking his head. "Everything I did, for this family," my mother screamed, her composure gone entirely, mascara running down her face in black rivers. "I kept us together. I protected everyone from the truth." "You protected yourself," my Aunt Dorothy said from the doorway. "That is all you ever did, Deirdre." Around the room, phones were buzzing again, and I realized the exodus had already begun in the family group chat too. I caught glimpses over shoulders, people leaving the conversation, blocking her number, typing furious messages. My mother lunged for my phone. "Delete it," she said. "Make everyone delete it." My Uncle Bernard and Grant held her back. I stood still in the center of it all, watching 28 years of carefully built lies collapse in real time. And then I felt a hand on my shoulder, gentle and warm. My grandmother. "Come with me," she said softly. She guided me through the chaos, past relatives who reached out to touch my arm, past cousins who murmured, "I am so sorry and I had no idea," and we stopped at the front door. Through the glass, I could see the driveway emptying, car after car pulling away. "You are still my granddaughter," Winifred said, firm as bedrock. "Blood or no blood, that does not change one thing." And I believed her. I found my father in the driveway. His horse was still there, engine running. He had not made it past the end of the drive. Through the windshield, I could see him sitting motionless, both hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. I knocked on the passenger window. He did not respond at first. Then, slowly, like a man waking from a dream, he reached over and unlocked the door. I slid in beside him. We sat in silence while the late afternoon sun laid long shadows across the hood, and from inside the house came the muffled sounds of arguing and crying. "I am sorry," I finally said. He turned to me, his eyes red. "Do not," he said. "Do not you dare apologize. You did nothing wrong." "I never wanted to hurt you," I said. He laughed, a broken, painful sound. 28 years, he said. 28 years I have loved you. I changed your diapers. I taught you to drive. I carried your boxes up 3 flights. His voice cracked. DNA does not change a single day of that. Tears pricked my eyes, the first ones all day. "You are still my dad," I said. "And you are still my daughter," he said, and he reached over and squeezed my hand. "That is the only thing I am sure of right now. Whatever else happens, that does not change." We sat there a long moment, father and daughter, bound by something a lab could never measure. "I have to go," he finally said. "I cannot be in that house right now. I cannot look at her." "I know," I said. He pulled me into an awkward hug over the center console, fierce and clumsy. "You were braver than me today," he said into my hair. "Braver than I have ever been." Then he let go, put the car in gear, and drove away. I walked back inside. The crowd had thinned to maybe 15 people, most of them looking shell-shocked, unsure whether to stay or flee. The framed bill still hung above the fireplace, a little gold monument to my mother's cruelty that now just looked pathetic. And my mother sat alone on the couch, her careful hairstyle come loose, her makeup destroyed, somehow smaller than before, as if the truth had physically shrunk her. I should have felt triumphant. I did not. She looked up as I came near, her eyes hollow. "Are you happy now?" she said, her voice raw. "You have destroyed everything." "No, Mom," I said, and I sat down in the chair across from her. "You did that 28 years ago. I just stopped helping you hide it." A sound escaped her, raw and ugly. "I was so scared," she said. "When I realized I was pregnant and it might not be his, I panicked. I thought if I just never told anyone." "You thought if you made everyone see me as the problem first," I said, "then nobody would believe me when the truth finally came out." She did not deny it. "Every time you looked at me, you saw your mistake," I said. "So you spent almost 30 years trying to turn me into something no one would miss." She covered her face with her hands. "I did not know how else to protect myself," she whispered. "By destroying me," I said. She had no answer. "Nobody ever does." I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. "I want you to understand something," I said quietly. "I did not do this to destroy you. I did it because I needed the truth to exist somewhere outside my own head. Those people needed to know I am not the disappointment you sold them for 28 years. Dad needed to know why you treated me the way you did. And you," I paused, "you needed to understand that I have had this for 3 years. And I never used it, not once, until you stood up in front of everyone and forced my hand with your little bill." I could see the irony land on her. "From now on," I said, "I do not need you to acknowledge me. I do not need you to love me. I stopped waiting for that a long time ago. I stood up. I need one thing from you. Leave me alone. If you show up at my door or contact my employer, or try to turn one more person against me, the next conversation will not be in front of family." I held her gaze. "It will be with the tax authorities and the police. Identity theft, tax fraud, the theft of my education fund. And remember, everything is documented, and copies live in more than one place." Her face went white. I walked to the door. "Goodbye, Mom," I said. She did not call after me. And for the first time in 28 years, my hands were not shaking. They were perfectly still. Julian was waiting when I got home. He did not ask questions right away. He just pulled me into a hug that lasted 3 full minutes, then made me tea and sat beside me on the couch while I told him everything. When I finished, I finally let myself look at my phone. The family group chat was chaos. Message after message, shock and anger, and a sudden, decades-late clarity about years of watching my mother's behavior and never once questioning it. And then the blocks started. One by one, relatives removing Deirdre Radcliffe from their lives, leaving group chats, unfollowing. By midnight, I counted 47. The private messages flooded in too. I had no idea. "I am so sorry I never stepped in," from my Aunt Dorothy. "You were so brave today. I wish I had half your courage," from my cousin Leah. "I always knew something was off. I should have trusted it," from my uncle Silas. The one that made me cry came from my Aunt Colleen, my mother's own sister. "I failed you, sweetheart," it said. "For 28 years, I watched and I said nothing. That ends today." I scrolled through each one, every apology that came decades too late and somehow still mattered. Julian pointed at my screen. "What about the 48th person?" he said. "Your grandmother?" I checked. There was no block from Winifred, but there was a text sent at 11:47 that night. "I need to see you tomorrow, 9 in the morning, my house. Come alone." I stared at those words. Something was happening, something beyond the immediate wreckage. Whatever my grandmother was planning, she had clearly been thinking about it since the moment that screenshot lit up 48 phones. Maybe longer. The farmhouse looked different in the morning light, quieter, emptier. The chaos had been cleaned away, the tables cleared, the chairs returned to their places, and the framed bill was gone from the mantel. The front door was open. I walked down the familiar hallway to the study at the back of the house, where my grandmother sat behind her oak desk. Papers were spread in front of her, official-looking documents dense with paragraphs and signatures. She was not alone. A man in a gray suit stood beside her, and I recognized him, Howard Pruitt, the family's estate attorney. I had met him once, years ago, at my grandfather's funeral. "Sit down, dear," my grandmother said. I took the chair across from her, my heart beating faster than I wanted it to. "I did not block your mother," she said directly. "Do you want to know why?" "Yes," I said, "because blocking her would have been a kindness," she said, and her voice was iron. "What I did instead is permanent." She slid a document across the desk toward me. "At 2:17 this morning, I called Howard and woke him from a dead sleep," she said. "By 4, we had it finished. My will has been changed." I looked at the paper. The legal language swam in front of me. "I do not understand," I said. "Your mother was set to receive 40% of my estate," my grandmother said. "That is now 5%. Her eyes met mine. "Just enough that she cannot go to a court and claim she was cut out entirely. Your share," she went on, "has gone from 10% to 35%. She paused. Your father's portion stays exactly as it was. He is a victim in this too, Grandma, I said. I was not expecting. I did not come here for I know, she said, and her voice softened. That is precisely why you deserve it. Howard Pruitt cleared his throat. For the record, he said, Mrs. Ellery made this decision of her own sound mind, with counsel present, and every page is properly witnessed and notarized. She anticipated a challenge. There will not be a successful one. My grandmother took the document back and set it aside. This is not about punishment, she said. This is about justice. She stood and walked to the window, looking out over acres of farmland that had been in our family for 3 generations. I started to suspect something was wrong years ago, she said quietly. The way she treated you, the excuses, the favoritism so blatant it made me uncomfortable in my own house. She turned back to me. When your grandfather was alive, we set up those education trusts on purpose, because we worried your mother would manage things poorly. Her face darkened. We never imagined she would steal from her own child. You could not have known, I said. I should have looked harder, she said, and her voice caught just slightly. When you graduated with all that debt, I offered to help. Your mother told me you refused. She said you wanted to prove you could do it yourself. My jaw tightened. Another lie. Another wall between me and the people who might have caught me. I believed her, my grandmother said. I will not make that mistake again. Then she reached into her desk drawer and took out an envelope, cream-colored, thick, my name written on the front in her careful hand. This is the graduation gift I tried to give you 6 years ago, she said. Your mother intercepted it, told me you did not want it. I opened it. Inside was a check for $55,000, dated the year I graduated, and beneath it, a handwritten letter. To my granddaughter Elodie, it read, May your future be brighter than anyone dares to expect. You have always been the strong one, whether they saw it or not. Numbers do not lie, sweetheart, and neither do you. Love, Grandma Winifred. The tears came before I could stop them. I was walking to my car when Portia appeared. She must have been waiting, watching for me to come out. Her face was puffy from crying, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked more human than I had seen her in years. Elodie, wait, she said. I stopped but did not turn. Please, she said, 2 minutes. I turned and waited. She took a shaky breath. I know I do not deserve anything from you, she said. I know that. You are right, I said. You do not. But I need you to understand, she said, struggling with it. I did not know about the credit cards at first. When I found out, I should have said something. I should have stopped it. But you did not, I said. No, she said, her voice breaking. I was scared. I was so scared of becoming you, of Mom turning on me the way she turned on you. And something shifted in my chest, not forgiveness, recognition. So you helped her hurt me, I said, to protect yourself. Yes, she said, wiping her eyes. I am not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I understand now why you did what you did, and I am sorry for all of it. We stood there, 2 sisters on opposite sides of a canyon that might never close. I cannot forgive you right now, I said finally. Maybe not ever, but I understand why you did it. Fear makes people do terrible things. I paused. Look at Mom. Portia nodded. If you ever want to talk, I said. I am here. I need time. I know, she said. We did not hug. We did not make promises. We just nodded at each other and walked to our separate cars. It was not closure, but it was honest, and that was more than we had ever managed before. A week later, the full picture came into focus. My Aunt Colleen had appointed herself my unofficial link to the family I had left behind. Your mother found out about the will, she told me on the phone. Howard Pruitt sent her the notice. How did she take it? I asked, a pause. She called your grandmother screaming, Colleen said. Threatened to sue. Said Winifred was senile and being manipulated. And what did Grandma say? I asked. 1 sentence, Colleen said. Then she hung up. What was the sentence? I asked. And my aunt's voice held something like awe. You made your choices for 28 years, she told her. I have made mine. What about Dad? I asked. Moved out, Colleen said. He is staying with his brother Theo in Allentown. The divorce papers are already filed. 32 years of marriage undone in a week. And Mom? I asked. She calls everyone, Colleen said. Asking for support. Asking people to reach out to Winifred on her behalf. Nobody answers. I should have felt triumph. I felt only a strange, tired quiet. Do you feel guilty? Julian asked me that night. I thought about it honestly. No, I said, but I do not feel victorious either. I just feel done. It is like a wound that has been infected for years, I said. Yesterday was the surgery. It hurts. It is ugly. But now it can actually heal. Is it over? He asked. I thought about the check from my grandmother, the messages from relatives I barely knew, the silence from the woman who gave birth to me. The explosion is over, I said. Now we find out what is left standing. It turned out to be more than I expected. 2 months after that Mother's Day, life found a new rhythm. My credit score, finally cleared of my mother's fraudulent cards, climbed to 761. My student loans dropped to $24,000 after I made one large payment with my grandmother's gift. Not enough to erase the debt, but enough to prove to myself that I could carry it and shrink it at the same time. Julian and I moved in together, a one-bedroom in Cambridge with actual counter space in the kitchen, a place we picked out together, with no one else's opinion asked for or required. My father came to see it on moving day. He brought a houseplant and a bottle of wine, and his eyes were tired, but there was something lighter in them. "How are you?" I asked while Julian unpacked boxes in the other room. "Getting there," he said, setting the plant on the windowsill. "The divorce will be final next month. I am staying with Theo until I figure out my next move." And emotionally, I asked. He managed a small smile. 28 years of lies is a lot to unlearn, he said, but I will tell you what I do not regret. Not one single day of being your father. Not one. We hugged for a long time. Sunday dinners became our new tradition, just the two of us, sometimes Julian, sometimes my grandmother driving down from Bucks County. Simple, quiet hours that I had never once had growing up. And then, 3 weeks after we moved, an envelope arrived with no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Dear Miss Radcliffe," it began. "I received a match through a DNA service and discovered we share a biological connection. My name is Stephen Corrigan. I believe I may be your biological father. I am not looking for anything from you. I only thought you had a right to know that I exist. If you ever want to talk, I am here." A phone number was printed at the bottom. I stared at that letter for 3 days before I showed it to Julian. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I do not know," I said. "I spent 28 years with one father. Now there might be 2. Stephen's letter was careful and respectful. He was not demanding a relationship or forcing his way into my life. He was simply making himself known. From the few details he shared, he and my mother had been co-workers almost 30 years ago, a brief relationship that she ended suddenly, without ever telling him why. He had moved to Ohio, built a life, had other children. When word of the family scandal eventually reached him through a relative, he had taken a DNA test, and the match was conclusive. "He is not asking to be your father," Julian said gently. "Gregory is your dad, and this man clearly knows that." "I know," I said. "But what if someday I want to know him too? Not now, but maybe." Julian took my hand. "You spent 28 years letting other people decide who you were," he said. "Your mother decided you were a disappointment, and the whole family believed her. This one is yours. Nobody else gets a vote." I thought about that for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and wrote a short reply. "Dear Stephen, I received your letter, and thank you for reaching out with such care. I am not ready to meet or talk yet. I need time to process everything. But I wanted you to know that I appreciate you not pushing, and I will reach out when and if I am ready. For now, thank you for letting me know you exist." I hit send, closed the laptop, and made dinner. Some answers can wait. I had already found the ones that mattered most. She showed up on a Tuesday. I was leaving my office building when I saw her standing near the entrance, thinner than I remembered, older, the designer clothes traded for something plain. "Elodie," she said. I stopped walking. "I have been trying to reach you," she said. "You blocked my number. My emails bounce back." "That is intentional," I said. "I know. I just..." She took a step forward. "I have been thinking about everything," and I wanted to say, "Stop," I said. She froze. "You do not get to do this," I said calmly. "You do not get to show up at my workplace and stage a reconciliation. That is not how boundaries work. I am your mother," she said. "You are the woman who stole from me, lied about me, and spent 28 years making me believe I was worthless because you could not face your own guilt," I said. "We are not getting coffee. We are not talking it through. We are not family. You cannot cut me out forever," she said. "I am not cutting you out forever," I said. "I am cutting you out until you learn that when I say no, I mean no." I held her gaze. "That might be forever. And that is your choice now, not mine." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the frightened young woman who had made a mistake and spent decades burying it under my life. But sympathy and boundaries are not enemies. You can understand exactly why a person became what they are and still refuse to let them keep hurting you. "Goodbye, Mom," I said, and I walked past her to my car. She did not follow. As I pulled out of the lot, I caught a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror, still standing there, watching me go. My hands were steady on the wheel. For the first time in my life, they were not shaking. That is what freedom feels like. If you are hearing this and you see yourself in it, I want to tell you one thing before I go. You are not what they called you. You are not the disappointment, not the difficult one, not the problem child or the black sheep or whatever label the people who were supposed to love you stuck on you, so they would not have to look at their own failures. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who hurt us the most, and drawing a line, refusing to keep absorbing their cruelty, is not selfish. It is survival. My mother sent me a bill for $362,000. She calculated the cost of my diapers and my braces and my birthday parties. But she never once calculated the cost of what she did to me. The years of wondering why I was not enough. The nights I cried alone. The opportunities stolen. The confidence crushed. There is no line item for that, and there is nothing she can pay to get me back. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe someday I will speak to her again. Maybe I never will. But for the first time in my life, that is my choice, not hers. My dad and I have dinner every Sunday. My grandmother calls every Wednesday. I am slowly rebuilding real connections with the aunts and cousins who finally see me clearly. And last week, Julian asked me if I wanted to look at rings, and I said yes. Life goes on, different, better, mine. So if you are out there, trapped in your own version of this story, I need you to know there's another side to it. Truth has power. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to the life you actually deserve. And you are worth more than the people who failed to see it. My grandmother was right about the only thing that ever really mattered. Numbers do not lie. People do. But you, if you decide to, you can be one of the ones who tells the truth and walks out into the light on the other side. If any part of this reached you tonight, stay a while and come back for the next one.